One of my areas, it was called Apas, and it was just down the road from the temple. So it was kind of in the middle of the Cebu city stake, right in the middle of the city. Apas was, actually a pretty area. It was kind of the city situated on the mountain, on the hills. So you had just kind of these concrete jungles set up against big mountains and big hills. So every day you wake up, that area, they have transportation, they have a lot of jeepneys going around, but for most of the times when you're working, you're on those mountainsides. So you have just steps. So many steps. I remember just sweating because, you know, you're visiting someone that lives at the top of this mountain, and so you just walk straight up in this kind of concrete jungle feel, straight up the mountain, hundreds of steps, and you know, there's just houses and people everywhere, and it's different. It's a different experience or a different kind of place than anywhere I'd been before, but it's really cool. It's also a cool place. It's amazing how people just, I mean, like the rural areas, they just find ways to live. I mean, they kind of are living on top of each other sometimes. There's a lot of people in and out in the cities, so they don't really know their neighbors, but they all coexist. They find work, they find jobs. In the city, you have a lot more. You have young people who work at call centers. You'll have a lot more just business things, people selling their food, selling whatever. You know, they'll walk around the streets and they'll yell out like, "Balut, ista," just whatever they're selling for the day. And a lot more buildings, a lot more people, but still kind of the same culture and the same people, which is what I love. The Philippines actually is, you know, I was kind of scared, like, oh, just going to this different country. It is, I always felt so safe, even in, you know, the middle of the cities where you have people everywhere around you, or in the middle of mountains where there's no one by your side. I really felt safe and at home for most of my mission. A lot of missionaries worry about that. And the Philippines, I mean, like any country, any place you go, there's going to be crime, there's going to be things, but it really, the Filipinos are a loving people. I never, you know, got mugged or anything. I never had problems with any of that. I usually just felt very, very loved and at home, which is another attribute of the Filipino people that I love. As far as Cebu City, one thing I guess that's interesting, it's becoming, if you're in the city, you'll see a lot of younger people who are really good at English. And a booming industry in Cebu City right now is call centers. So a lot of times if you're here in America, if you're going to the mission in the Philippines and you want to try speaking the language, just call a company, and there's a good chance. I've talked to several call center representatives that are from the Philippines, and so they have these new developments that it's tall buildings just filled with call centers. And it's an interesting culture because they're usually kind of alive at nighttime when everyone else is asleep, because that's when we're awake in America. So you get a lot of people during the day, and it doesn't stop. All through the night you have a lot going on in Cebu City because you have these call centers that 24/7 are always going. So that's kind of something interesting most people probably wouldn't realize about Cebu City, but a lot of young, very good English speakers in Cebu City. In Cebu, you'll speak, and in Negros, and the Cebu Mission, you'll speak Cebuano. People are good at English. Most everyone can speak English to you. They can understand a little bit, but really if you want to be able to connect with them and to teach them effectively, you're going to be speaking Bisaya, is what they call it there most of the time, the Visayan language. So that's something to know. A lot of people think, or missionaries might get used to speaking English a lot, but everyone there speaks Cebuano, and if you really want to be effective, you are going to want to try to master the language. And it's a fun language. It's a really unique, but a really cool language to learn. The southern, kind of middle southern region of the Philippines is called the Visayan region of the Philippines, and all of that region, they speak a pretty similar language, which is kind of why it's called Bisaya, or the Visayan language. Cebuano is technically that dialect of that language that's spoken on Cebu. So Cebuano, that's where you get the Cebuano from. So if you're on Cebu, technically they're speaking the pure Cebuano, but in the mission you're generally going to refer to it as the Visayan language, or Bisaya, is kind of how they say it. So it's pretty much the same thing, it just depends on how you're specifying it, I guess.